We give honor to God, our Creator, our Provider, and our Redeemer. We love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our strength. And we love our neighbors as ourselves as we give honor to our founder, Mildred Miller, to His holiness of blessed memory, Master Melvin Davis, to our spiritual guides, to the leaders and officials throughout our cities, throughout our states, throughout our country, and throughout all countries. We give honor to our ancestors and those who've helped us in the past, those who've provided things for us individually, for our families, and those who have done things to help our country. We honor and praise them for those things that they have left for us. And we honor our children and the future that we can provide for them. We give honor to them. And for those who have joined us now and those who have joined us later on this broadcast and who will listen to our recordings, we honor you for the things that you're doing and for the search that you have to bring God to full fruition in all our lives. We greet you with Hotep, with peace, shalom. Now, as I said, that our scripture for the day or for this month is the first Psalm. So I'm going to read the first Psalm. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by the streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. Not so the wicked. They are like chaff that the wind blows away. Therefore, the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction. I've read the first Psalm in the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Blessed Mother. Amen, amen, amen. Now we're going to have the Lord's Prayer, so I'll ask you, for those who, to repeat after me, but you'll need to mute your phones, and the way to mute your phone is with the *6 symbol. And now let's together repeat the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen, amen, amen. Now for our song is Break Thou the Bread of Life. And it looks like I forgot to put the song on here, the music to the song. So I am going to have to bring it up real quickly. Sorry, I forgot that. And I need to go to break thou the bread of life, dear Lord, to me. As thou did break the loaves beside the sea. Beyond the sacred page, I seek thee, Lord. My spirit pants for thee, O living word. Okay, and now for our meditation. And my meditation, I call this meditation, my health comes from the Lord, or my health comes from the Lord. And I'd like you to again stay on mute and repeat after me the meditation. O blessed Lord of all, the source of all my blessings, grant me life, health, and prosperity. You have given us food from the ground for our bodies, and glory from heaven from our souls. All my health comes from the Lord. Hallelujah. Amen. 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 Now that kind of ends our devotional part of our meeting, and we're going to start talking about health and nature. Now, in talking about health, I want to talk about two ways of using medicines for health. And a lot of times we don't think about this, but there are two ways, and the two basic ways are, remember, I think it's about the pathways. And there are two words. One word is called allopathic, and the other one is called homeopathic healing. Now, when we talk about a path, that word pathic in there is that, just like it says, it's pathways. It's two types of procedures, the major types of procedures that you can use in being health. And one is called allopathic and one is called homeopathic. Now, from the dictionary definition, the allopathic, or the that pathway, says, is the treatment of disease by conventional means, with drugs having opposite effects to the symptoms. So in this pathway, and that's the pathway that you normally see, is that you take the drug or medicine that is opposite to the symptoms that you are exhibiting. So if you have a cough, you would take a cough suppressant. If you have pain, you'll take something that is fight against the pain. So that is called the allopathic. That's a pathway that whatever symptoms you're showing, that you take the medicine that uses the opposite of that symptoms that you have to lead you to health. Now, homeopathic is another pathway that you can use in medicine. And again, by the dictionary definition, it is the treatment of disease by minute doses of natural substances that in a healthy person would produce symptoms of disease. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but there are homeopathic medicines. And these homeopathic medicines, I know we used to use cell salts, and cell salts were considered to be a homeopathic method. And with that, with the dose that you're giving, it's more involved than the dose, because you're actually giving the person a dose of something that if you gave it that particular thing to a healthy person, it would actually cause the symptom that you're giving them. In other words, if a person was vomiting and you want to give them a homeopathic medicine, you actually give them a dose of something that or give them the medicine that would actually cause them to vomit. And the thing about it, and this is something that they even found back in ancient Egypt, that the strength that but you get when you give them a homeopathic medicine, you give them a small dosage of that medicine that would cause what they were having. Because the body is kind of strange. If you give them a minute dosage of something that would cause them to have the symptom that you're trying to stop, the body actually kicks in and starts doing some things to actually reverse it. So the body, and I talk about these two to let you know what a miraculous mechanism God has made in our bodies. That, because to me, whether you're talking about allopathic or you're talking about homeopathic, in all cases, it is your body that has to do something as part of your healing. It is this mechanism that God has put within you that actually is the greatest factor in your health. Is not the medicine. The medicine is there to try to get some reaction from your body, this wonderful mechanism that God has given us. Now, we're going to be talking about some of the natural healing herbs and some of the other things. But when we talk about natural, I call this lesson the natural pathway to health. But I want to bring something up about the word natural, because too often when we think of natural, we think of something that is of the material. And for me, when I really talk about the word natural, I'm talking about something that is more than a material. In fact, sometimes we'll call Mother Nature. We say, oh, it's Mother Nature. And when we're talking about Mother Nature, we're not just talking about material things. We're talking about that aspect of God that is feminine. And so we're then not just talking about the natural things in there, we're talking about systems that God has put in place, healing that God has put in place. Now, the first thing when we have to look at the word natural, one of the things that kind of led me to believe that natural was more than just material things is that many people who study ancient Egypt language relates the word natural to an ancient Egypt word that is called neter. Now they didn't have vowels in the ancient Egyptian language, or not many vowels. So their words were usually made up of consonants. So if you look at the consonants in the word natural, you'll get the N, the T, and the R. And that's the word neter. Now, neter is often translated as a god or a god. So the neter that you see sometimes, or the different personifications you see in ancient Egypt, they are called the neter or the neteru, which means multiple gods. But the word in most of the cases means divine. So it means these divine principles or the divine personalities or something that is divine. So if you take the word nature and compare it to its ancient Egyptian root, its nature actually means divine. What kind of things has God put in place? What are some of the divine things that are in place that leads to, in our case, to healing? Because we should see nature as being something that is beyond just the material manifestation, but nature should think that this is the divine manifestation. The things that we see are nature, in nature, or call them natural, actually come to us from God. And that's why I said that all of my health comes from the Lord, because all the things that we call nature are really godly things. They're divine things that have been passed down to us. That's why it is our body that we can actually help to give a message or something to make it to heal itself, whether you give it something to help the body deal with the symptoms to reverse the symptoms in an allopathic way, or to entice the body into a homeopathic healing when you give it a minute dose of that which would normally cause that problem. There's always that nature, that divineness in you that actually does the healing. Even if you go to a surgeon and they cut you open to do something, they are depending on that natural, a divine nature within you to be able to, once they take out some of the big problem, that your body is going to then knit your skin back together, is going to cause the things inside you to now concentrate on the healthy aspect of your life, and it kind of takes some of the fight away from the body of fighting that disease when they cut something off. But the body still has to mend. The body is or these divine things or natural things that have been given to us are always what is a part of that healing. So when we think on nature, or when I think on nature, the word nature, I like to take it back to this is something that is divine. This is something that God has prepared. This goes back to me to that ancient Egyptian word of netter, that actually means this is divine. So we should start looking at our greatest healing as a divine process, as a godly process, as something that God has given us, even though we may use what we consider medicines and other types of techniques that God has granted us as the catalyst or the inspiration for it. That healing, all of your health, actually comes from the Lord. Now, when we're talking, since we're talking about it, for those who can see the screen, I have samples of many healing herbs. This is some picture, and it has things like, and it tells about what even from ancient days, they saw that in these plants, there were some natural or divine properties in them that actually cause the body or our bodies to heal. And while I'm talking about these natural ancient remedies, I want to talk a little bit about something I learned about one of the African nations when they were talking about how they looked at health and how they looked at the earth. Because they called the earth, one of the words for talking about the earth, they called the earth the medicine bag of God. So when they looked, their word for the planet was that it was a medicine bag to God, because they believed that in the earth, God had causes these healing properties to be a part of the earth. And they call plants and herbs tubes. So when they saw a plant growing from the earth, or coming from the earth, or coming from the ground, they looked at the plant as being a tube. Why was it a tube? Because it was drawing some of the healing from the earth and like it was gathering it up in a tube or a capsule. And that when you ate that herb, whatever healing that it had drawn from the earth would then be transferred and become a part of your body. So that's how they started looking at plants as a source of healing. But to them, it first came from God. First, God put those healing properties in the earth. Then it put plants that were specialists or special tubes for being able to draw that specific healing from the ground. And then man just needed to learn which plants did what, so that when they had problems, they could go to a particular plant. So when you talk about some of those ancient remedies, some of the ones that it listed on this on one of the websites, was that alfalfa, and it said alfalfa relieves digestion, aids blood clotting, and enhances the immune system. Aloe, used to heal burns, insect bites, and wounds. Aspen, used as a tea to treat fever, coughs, and pain. Even bee pollen boosts energy, aids digestion, and enhances the immune system. Beeswax, used for burns and insect bites, including the bee sting. It had blackberry, and remember, these are ancient remedies. They're using blackberry to treat diarrhea, reduce inflammation, and stimulate the metabolism. They were using cayenne, used as a pain reliever. Remember, cayenne, we have cayenne pepper, but they actually have cayenne as a pain reliever. They had calamine to use as a tea to treat indigestion problems and nausea. So it was just so many others that they have in ancient days, and you still, even in modern days, you have things like basil to use to. I have to put on my glasses because I can't read what basil is good for. Basil had vitamins, had iron and vitamin A in it. So all these things, there are, like the African says, we can look at these as tubes, or another way of looking at it as God's test tubes, that these plants are God test tubes, that he is creating these healing properties for us. And ginger, ginger root, which aids in digestion and digestive health and inflammatory, it was an anti-inflammatory. But all of these things are really, from the African standpoint, they were like the tubes that were being used to draw those things in to the like a tube that you could use to then go to them and extract those that healing property from them. But again, all of this is a part of a divine design, knowing that people would come and do some things that would upset the balance. God decided that He would put things here that would also help to heal the balance. So when we think of nature, still think as nature is something that is divine and it works with divine principles to be able to heal them. You know, Teresa and I were looking at a show that we stumbled on television about this man whose name was Percy Julian or Julius. I think it's Percy Julius. And Percy Julius was a black chemist. And as a chemist, it taught so much about what they're doing in chemistry to come up even with the drugs they have. Because most of the drugs that they have on the market to heal you, they've actually found ways to try to replicate the substances that they found in plants. So they would, their drugs, they would see a plant that had some type of healing property. And what the chemist would do is he would first go and try to keep breaking up the parts of the plants down to the basic chemical elements to try to find out what combination of elements in that plant was the active ingredients in the healing properties of that plant. And once they found those active ingredients or that particular chemical compound, they tried to find a way to actually mass produce it. Because in most cases, what they with the search for chemicals were that they already knew of some healing property of a plant or a substance in a plant. But that plant was in limited supply. So what they needed to do was find a way of something that was in a larger supply of it and find the things that they would need to combine together to create that same chemical balance, and then they would have more of the medicine. So most chemicals were actually originally discovered to actually be able to mass produce the healing properties that they had already seen in plants. And the story of Percy Julius goes into these chemical processes and talks about how as a black man who was a genius in these chemical things, it kind of showed all the problems he had as a black man to be able to present these healing properties that he had found. And he did some great things and had some great problems as a black man to be able to do that. But we'll probably talk about Percy a little bit more later. But it's that still you're trying to get to those divine properties, those divine healing substances that God has already placed in plants and use them. And in our lessons that's going to talk about many times is better to stay closer to the natural sources. So to be able to do it and not just go for the ones that have been manipulated by man. But before we go on, do we have, because now we're going to go into the lesson. But if you have any questions or comments so far? Teacher, you need to unmute to be able to say that. Uh, and she says she's on the phone. She does. I can hear her here in the house. She said his name was Percy Julius, was the name of the man. And just so everybody know, to mute and unmute yourself, you use the star key and 6, and it should work if you know how to get to your keypad. But the star and 6 should unmute and mute your phone to be able to talk. But Percy Julius was a man, and it is a very interesting story. If you do it, it's on. It's like a Nova special on. I think it's called Forgotten Geniuses. And
Oh,
this. Hello.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Oh, sorry. His name is Percy Julian, and it comes on. It came on Nova.
Oh, Julian. I was doing it wrong. Percy
Yeah,
Julian. Okay.
Julian is his last name, and it came on. It's Nova. It's called Extraordinary Genius.
Uh,
Extraordinary Genius.
oh, I thought it was Forgotten Genius.
Yes, it's Extraordinary Genius.
Oh, Extraordinary Genius. Okay.
You probably could go on your Xfinity and say it, but I think it's now on a pay channel because I just taped it when I saw it that it was coming on, but it comes on PB. It came on PBS. If maybe you could find it, maybe PBS will be showing it again. I don't know, but it's called Extraordinary Genius.
And it's a marvelous story about his life, about how he uncovered these things, how he was uh, rejected by the white chemical community, community scientists to get involved in working with the large chemical labs. How he had to fight to get his master's degree by going out of the country into Germany to actually work with them. When he came back, he still met with problems with teaching in school. Uh, because he had said some things about how much he enjoyed being in Germany, even the black community went against him. Some of the black newspapers printed some stories about him to get him kicked out as being a teacher, and talks about how he ended up working for a private company, actually Glitton Paint, the Glitton Company, and helped them to create a lot of the paints, and he had them creating mayonnaise and all these things out of soybeans, taking the soybean structure and building his compounds up to make plastics and paint, and then even finding some of the healing properties of some of these things to be able to make medicines, to make progesterone, which is something that women needed to be able to help with birth, and to make other steroids. Ended up learning even how to manufacture cortisone in greater quantities, because they found that it was great for healing rheumatoid arthritis, but there weren't many of the plants, so he found other plants and other substances that could help to be able to manufacture this cortisone. But the it's a very, if you get to see it, it's wonderful. It breaks down a lot of the things that they use in chemistry to be able to do it. Because to me the something that was amazing about what chemists are doing is they go through these painstaking processes to see how to get to these chemicals. But when you look at these processes they're going through to break them down, they're actually common things you do. Like sometimes you see in chemistry they have that little bowl with the little thing that they kind of crush things. So they're crushing things to release the properties of it. They are sometimes heating things. It's called distilling, and distilling is just making a tea. So actually, when you're making a tea, using one of the processes that chemists use to do things. Now, a lot of times when they distill thing as a tea, they make it go through all these loops so they can kind of see what's being broken down in it. But when you're making a tea, you're using one of the processes that they use when you're cooking. You're using a chemical process because some things they find that to make the change in it, you have to heat it up. But then they want to be very precise with the temperature because they believe that just a change in the temperature that you use to heat something up actually changes how it breaks down and becomes other chemicals. So these processes they use, but again, they're just using natural, divine processes that God has given us to be able to try to find solutions to life problems. Any
And
other ones?
also,
Go ahead.
another thing, they made a lot of things from the sweet potato.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, two of the sources that he made for a lot of those things were soybeans and sweet potatoes, because he was looking at there's a chemical there's a carbon pattern, a chemical pattern that is found in both the soybeans and actually more in sweet potatoes, or these yams that they had from Mexico, and they were such a good source of this particular carbon structure that at first Mr. Julian was using the soybeans to do a lot of these things, and then found out that of this particular chemical compound, carbon compound, the sweet potato actually had more of it in it. So it was able to actually produce more of the things he was working in. So it kind of shows you how they're going to plants to be able to get many of these things. First of all, finding out that going to the plants, the finding out their healing properties, and then using the chemical processes of distilling, which means boiling in water, or direct heat, or like you're showing, of mashing things up to break them down, or using some other chemicals like your body uses the acids to break things down. They found a lot of times that these same type of natural chemical processes can be used and codified or written down in such a way that you can create things that are for the benefit of man. But and I'm just saying all these things to you that when we think of nature, think of it as the divine. How do we get to know divine things better and use those divine processes better? Does anyone else want to would like to speak about that before we go on to our message? Remember, all your health comes from the Lord. And a lot of times what we're just doing as people is just noticing what God has given, has left here for us, and finding out ways how we can use it to deal with some of the problems that we've caused for ourselves. But now I'm gonna go to the February message, and remember, because we've been you have each month we use a message from our Supreme Father Marshall Davis, um, and use that to help us to find ways to live a more divine and holy life. And in this one, it's talking about those healing processes. In fact, to begin reading, it says, many ailments and diseases can be overcome with essential herbal products. So it means that there are herbs out there that you can actually find the essential. And when you talk about the essential, it's actually going back to the ones that it has not been too much processed by man. Because like I said, when you're making a tea, you're actually using a chemical process to make that tea. But it's saying that in those herbs, there is a certain balance that is essential, and that many of our ailments and diseases can be healed by just going back to some of the original healing processes. See, these herbal teas, when used appropriately, have less side effects. And that's one of the beautiful things about when they're created in the plants and used in the plants, is that one of the heartbreaking things to hear about many of the medicines they're using is when they get to the part of the side effects. And, you know, with many of the teas, when they do something, the teas don't come with a list of, I've never seen a tea that came with, oh, but here's a list of the side effects when you take it from the actual tea, from you take it from the plant. And so many people prefer and get much more benefit from some things by actually going to the tea or the herb that it came from originally. In fact, one of the reasons why they tell you not to mix medicines, one of the reasons why they tell you that if you're taking a certain man-made medicine for something, um, uh, don't compound it by taking the teas for that same thing. And the problem with that is because of overdosing. Remember, many of these chemicals have been created by finding the chemical compound in a plant, isolating what they call the active ingredient, and then taking that active ingredient and mass producing it. So if you take a plant that actually does the same thing, when the doctor goes to you, one of the great things about it, that's why I talked about allopathic and homeopathic, is the dose matters. So if you're taking a certain medicine that the doctor gave you, which is a form of the same thing that you're going to be taking in the tea, you can end up overdosing yourself. Now, but if you can get the effect, or if you can get the healing from the tea, what makes it so much better is that the tea has other things in there to balance its effects out, so it does not have as many side effects. And too often, when you're taking it, the one that has been created by man and scientists, that they don't have the necessary balancing of things in it. So they have to warn you about what are the side effects of taking it that way. So in here, Supreme Father Marshall is saying, sometimes if you can get that effect from the tea, go for the tea and save yourself some of the side effects that go along with taking the medicines. It says ancient methods used a variety of herbs and herbal parts, such as the leaves, roots, and seeds, to affect positive results in the body. And so it says since ancient times, they've been looking at the various parts of plants to be able to extract from where there's the leaves, the root, of the seeds, to see that their impact on the body. In fact, scientists has a name for a whole group of chemical compounds that come from plants. And this is talked about in the documentary that we saw. They're called alkaloids. And these alkaloids is a name they give to these, a lot of the chemical bases or chemical healing properties in plants that are nitrogen based. Usually alkaloids have some part of it is nitrogen, and that nitrogen and the buildup on it has healing properties, and they call those alkaloids, usually because they have more of a chemical balance. So, but it says that since ancient times, people have been studying these leaves and roots and seeds to see what positive effects they have on the body. It goes on to say they recognize in their treatment that many of the herbs have an affinity with the elements. So he's saying that this is a spiritual process they use, because one of the ways that the ancient ways of figuring this out is we've talked about the elements, and the elements for here, we're not talking about chemical elements. We're talking about fire, earth, air, and water, or the basic metaphysical elements. And when he's talking about them finding an affinity for the element, he said that it would find some of the elements, some of the things were more closely related to fire, some were closely related to earth, some were closely related to air, or the effects that we see from that. And with this affinity that they saw for these things, the ancient way of doing it, now like a scientific way now, is breaking down the molecular structure and looking at the molecular structure. But a lot of these ancient things were discovered by looking at the metaphysical elements and using them as a keynote in being able to discern the healing properties of things. And with this, they also associate various organs with an element and use this affinity to strengthen the organ, cool down the organ, or warm up the organ based on the symptoms of the illness. So they said that they would also, by looking at the various organs of the body, they would use these same type of metaphysical elements. And I'm going to call them metaphysical elements so we don't confuse them with chemical elements. But they use this knowledge of associating the organs with these metaphysical elements to be able to come up with how you could use the other healing properties or the elemental properties of the plants to be able to do whatever you needed to do to the organ that was diseased, whether it was to cool that organ down or to warm that organ up. And they would use the symptoms as a way of seeing which element what that organ needed. Did that organ need to be cooled down, or did it need to be sped up to be able to come up with how they got these healing properties from plants using metaphysical um, means to come up with the healing, just as now they're using the knowledge of how chemicals react to be able to come with these healing properties. So the message here is talking about there were but the strange thing to me about it is that these healing properties that were found in ancient times are a lot of times the basis of what they start from in modern times to come up with these healing elements. But what they'll do is they'll try to just narrow it down to one small element and not look at all the other things that go along with it and try to just bombard with that allopathic, where they see if if you got this symptom, we know that this counteracts that symptom. But then don't look at what all of the other side effects of me bombarding that. And what it's saying here that the more natural processes from ancient times took that in consideration and had a more, I would call it, peaceful and calm way of directing the body to heal itself. Because remember, we still want to go back to the fact that your body is a divine thing. It's natural because it is divine. So your body has the properties and the tools and the wherewithal it has to heal itself. But what you need to do sometime is, just like they say in chemical process, you need to add something sometime. You need to take away something sometime. You need to break things down in your body to be able to get it to get back to a state of harmony. But you can do that with the chemical elements, or you can do it with the metaphysical elements in your healing. Said, recognize that food is your safest medicine. So it's saying that the food you eat is really a medicine that you're taking. Because remember, we've talked about these healing properties of plants. We've talked about, and there are chemical processes also in everything we eat, whether you call it meat or plant or vegetable or bean. We've talked about all the healing properties that are possible in yam. We've talked about chemical processes. Your body is capable of chemical processes, but food is one of the safest medicines that you can use using the right food. And I remember there was and I forgot the name of the author, but there was a guy who wrote a book one time that was called Diet for a Small Planet. And several books they called Diet for a Small Planet. And what he found out that we were wasting a lot of the vegetables because people and he really didn't get to a point of saying, he wasn't saying become a vegetarian, but he was saying that we need more vegetables in your diet, and you can probably get away with having a diet that gave you a total chemically balanced life by just using vegetables. Because he actually talked about both people who wanted to be vegetarians and people who wanted to use meat and other things in their diet. And he said all of them, you need to go for a balance. Because just like I talked about the chemists mixing things, he said when you're eating things, your body has to do certain chemical processes. And if you don't give it the right ingredients in that mixture, that your body actually throws everything else away. And he said that's like when you're if you just ate one one thing and it didn't have the certain elements that you needed, chemical elements that you need in your body, that the body didn't have, like, it was like if you were in a laboratory and you were trying to make something, and let's call it you were in a cooking laboratory. If you were cooking a cake and you didn't have flour, or you just had a little bit of flour, well, you can only make an amount of cakes related to how much flour you have, but also you would have to look at there's also salt. So you need a certain amount of flour, you need a certain amount of salt, you need a certain amount of whatever other things that were in there. You'd have the right mixture of those things to make a cake. Well, your body is the same way. When it's making or breaking down food in your body, it has to have a correct amount of every ingredient it needs to make that thing, to be able to make that thing. So he was saying that one of his things about his diet was, when you eat things, you need to put the right mix of foods into your body. And by putting the right mixture of foods to your body, and he said this both for people who were meat eaters and people who were vegetarians, that they needed the right combinations of food going into their body for the body to make the energy that they needed. Because if you put if you had more flour than was necessary, then your body has to find a way. How am I gonna get rid of this flour? I don't have the salt and the other things to be able to make the cake that I want to make, or to make the healing I want to make. So all I have is all of this flour. So let me just do something with it. Now the body can decide it want to store it as fat, but at a certain point, even it said, even with that, oh no, so I just need to get rid of that. I already got enough fat in the body. So your body has to make these miraculous decisions. And in this diet for the small planet, it was saying that when you eat, you need to eat a balance of food. And he says part of what people kind of did in, well, it's like some of the African dishes, they would have like beans and rice. And he would evaluate these and said a lot of those combinations that they did actually made if you just ate the beans alone without the rice, it would be like you would have a shortage of some of the things you needed to make the healing elements in your body. And he would tell how much vegetables, he's saying that you needed the beans, the rice, and some vegetables to be able to have the right combination. And he even said with vegetarians, people will say, oh, I'm just going to eat vegetables, and not think about, well, if you're going to have your body where it has to make your proteins out of just plant proteins, the plant proteins do not have the same chemical structure as meat proteins. So when you eat the plant proteins, you have to have the right mixture of them so that your body can then create the meat protein, the thing that was just like the meat protein. So in this diet here for a small planet, he was showing you how to mix the foods together. One of the things that talks about in here is also as part of this chemical processes that your body is going through, is that you need to reduce a lot of times when you're eating fruits and grains and vegetables, or fruit and meat, he was saying that you really shouldn't eat fruits with vegetables, and or avoid eating fruit with vegetables, because you made the body counteract the chemicals it need to break them down. I know because one of them, it's been so long since I've read, I've forgotten which one goes with which. But your body makes two basic type of chemicals to break things down. One is more alkaline, one is more acidic. And the fruits and vegetables use a totally different type of enzyme to break them down. One uses an acidic enzyme, one uses an alkaline enzyme to break it down. So when you eat fruits with vegetables, the body then has to introduce both the alkaline and an acid together, and alkalines and acids neutralize themselves. So it can actually cause you not to digest the thing, because the chemicals that it uses to break it down have now counteracted each other. So now you need to have an alkaline or an acid there to break the food down. So you have nothing to break the food down, and then wonder why you have indigestion. So in this diet for the small planet, he was talking about this thing about the various processes that your body goes through in a natural way. So a lot of times you have to use food in the right way. It makes you sometimes seem like you're being a chemist, but that's one of the reasons I talked about that your body is this miraculous machine. The body is trying to do everything it can to help you, but it does it in certain balances. It does it in certain combinations. And so the way you eat has a definite way on effect on how your body can help to heal itself. But in here it says that, still saying that, recognize that food is the safest medicine. And it's saying it's the safest because it's saying those things that we have as food um, don't have, when man makes it a process is too much. Because even when you're talking about food as safe as medicine, he says live foods work at a slower pace than synthetic medicines. And really, sometimes when we look at live food, sometimes some of the foods we're eating are synthetic. Uh, when I was talking about the processes, is that or the things that um, that Percy Julian was making, one of the things he found that you can make out of soybean was margarine. And so sometimes even the thing that we say is food is synthetic. It's something that has been manufactured. And because it is manufactured, sometimes you have to think about, is it losing something in that process of making it? And when he's talking about live food, he's talking about foods that was once a living thing, that it hasn't gone through a chemical process. Because even when we're eating the white bread, they've taken the flour and bleached it and taken a lot of the nutrients out of it, and then have these wonderful things about enriched bread. But it's enriched because you bleached it to make it white, taking out many of the uh, components of the bread to make it white. And now you're saying you're enriching it by trying to put the components back in, but you took the components out in the first place. So that's why they say wheat or brown bread is better for you, because it has left some of the chemicals or vitamins and things that were already in the bread. To make bread white, you actually have to bleach out or take out some of the nutrients from that bread to get it to be white bread. So, but then they would say, but oh, we're going to put this back in it, and we're going to put this back in it. We're going to enrich the bread. And the crazy part about it is, why do you take the nutrients that were in there and out in the first place and to make it? And a lot of that is because it will preserve longer. If you ever had white bread and brown bread and sit both of them up there, the brown bread is going to spoil quicker because they bleached it so that it would have a longer shelf life. So it wasn't because it'll be healthier, and it wasn't because of the taste. It was because of shelf life. The shelf life of white bread is much longer than that of brown bread. So but what you're losing then is a lot of the nutrition that was already in the bread, and trying to make it up with a chemical that also has a long shelf life. Um, or even when they refine sugar means they've done it and they've taken it through some processes to do things to it to even give it a longer shelf life. So a lot of the food that we're eating, and why he would say live food, is food that has not been over processed to the point that you have messed up the balances of it and messed up then taken out many of the nutrients that were already there. To me, it's just like when they talk about. I remember I always thought it was weird when they made you start paying more for unleaded gas. Now most gases are unleaded. Almost all the gas is unleaded. But the crazy thing about it is that unleaded gas means that we did not add lead to it to thicken it or to make it go longer. So you had to pay more for them not to add lead to gas, because lead is not originally in gas. You have to add lead to it. And when they're saying unleaded gas, that means we didn't add any lead to this. So we want to charge you. At one time, you actually had to pay more for unleaded gas than you had to pay for gas that they added lead to it. It's sort of like you paid more because they were not trying to what do you call it, a cut, like they weren't trying to cut it by adding lead to it. Now, do I want to pause and see if let me pause for a while and see if there are any questions before we go to more to lessons. Any questions so far? Comments? Okay, well, we'll go on. And this is from reading in the message. However, the course of the natural organic substance works in a natural manner, and it brings the body back to a state of normalcy. And this was the harmony I was talking about. So it's saying that when you get it, when it's closer to the way it actually grew, I call it in nature. It grew in life. It grew, and it was done organically. Because it's saying natural and organic. Organic means uh, basically that you haven't used a lot of chemical substances to um, added to it, that they will work in a more divine or natural manner. They will help to create more of a balance. So it's saying that sometimes it costs more to get something that's natural and organic, but actually realize that you're getting more from the things that are natural and organic, and you're getting it in more of a balanced way. Um, and you just have to make a decision on how you're going to afford the balance. But know that your whole life, your whole body kind of works more by balancing things and making them right. So know that natural organic substance works better for your body. And said there are markets of natural products that are properly granulated and perceived to be more effective than a potted or a cup of tea. Um, and what they're saying is that um, that there are sometimes pills that you can take, because when it's talking about granulated, it's talking about making into a pill. So it's saying sometimes when you make things into pills, that you can actually be more effective than actually saying, I'm going to pull it right out of the pot, or that I'm going to make a tea out of this substance. That it has gone through the way that it has been granulated, or the way that it's been made into grains, is a good way to make it. But it's taking that natural thing and making it to the grains, not just saying, well, we're going to take the chemicals and try to change them. But it's saying that, but you have to watch, because sometimes it says properly granulated. Um, you have to make sure that you trust the source who's putting together, because you remember you're trusting them, that they have gone through the right procedures of how they change this thing into a grain. Uh, and like I said, like, we'll go and we'll get golden seal tea pills. Well, make sure, and the funny thing about it is, one time I was told that if you want to get certain pills, is actually, it used to be, even though it's kind of changed now, it used to be better to go to a drugstore and buy it than it was to go to the health food store. And the reason why the health food store is, a lot of times health food stores would use brand names, brand names that were not under any type of guidelines or regulations. And so you didn't know if they were actually mixing it together properly. And the ones that you would get through in a drugstore, and this is when you're buying natural herbs, that most of those at that time had gone through some type of process of screening, where the balance that they said was in there was in there. It's kind of changed now over the years, that you're almost getting the same thing in both of them, but you do want to go to a source that you can trust when you're getting those, because they need to do it in the right process if you're going to supplement your diet with a more natural pill. So the way they granulate it, that said, is an important part of how you get the most effect out of it. And when it's granulated, it's saying that it can be more effective than just saying, I'm going to take this thing out of the pot, in the mean, it's the pot that it's planted in, or that I'm going to take something that I have and put in a cup of tea. So he's saying that he believes that the granulated pills of these things, when they're done by the right company with the right granulation process, can be a very effective way of getting the healing benefits of of these plants. It says, next line says, make a schedule to purify your body, cleansing your bowels, your kidneys, and your liver. So it's saying when you're cleansing that you want to cleanse, a lot of times we'll just take a laxative to cleanse our bowels and not think about the things that we need to help to cleanse our kidneys and our liver. And there are different types of pills or different type of plants that you can use to help to cleanse your kidneys and your liver. But give yourself a time to do that. Like you might need when we're talking about uh, what is it, saw palmetto is good for cleaning out the kidneys. Now it's not like a laxative. A laxative is made to clean out your intestines. But when you're taking something like a straw palmetto or some other things, that those type of things actually help to cleanse out other parts of your body. So you need to think about in cleansing the body, you kind of think, does it have the things I need to be able to not just cleanse my bowels out, but I need to make sure I'm getting the things that keep my kidneys clean and my liver clean. Said, be moderate in this cleansing process. And say, what it's saying is be moderate is don't try to overdo it. Don't try to say, oh, I'm going to go on. And remember, it's talking about cleansing. This is not talking about weight loss, because you'll have people that do these weird things to say, oh, I'm going to cleanse myself, but I'm going to just try to do it to lose weight. And I know one comedian was talking about how she went through this thing she came on and she lost all this weight and lost it by going on a fast and colonic irrigations. And so she was on like just on juices and colonic irrigation. And she lost all this weight. In fact, she's talking about, I know she's a comedian. She was talking about she lost the first week, she lost a stone. And that stone was it's 14 pounds. So in 1 week, she lost 14 pounds by fasting and doing colonic irrigations. Now, colonic irrigations is sort of like a super enema where they pump water up in you and just draw that water out and pull a lot of the residue that's just been, or they call it debris, that's been sitting in your body for a long time. And this is saying is, we're not suggesting that you take those drastic steps, because even this lady said, yes, I've lost the weight, but give me a month or two and I'll be back. I'll be right back up again. So it's saying take it where you have it on a schedule that that is over time. It just keeps them being clean. That you have a regularly scheduled time when you do this cleansing. Now, for us, part of that regularly scheduled time to help cleanse ourselves more is coming up when we have the Lent season. We use that a time, because I see it more as a time of cleansing and of resting the body digestive system from because another thing they say about meat and breaking down meat is one of the hardest things for the body to break down. It takes a lot of energy to break down meat. So when you're always eating meat, you're always it causes more heat in your body. Because one thing you have to do when you're fasting, especially when you're taking out meat and the sugar that you're eating, is you have to watch yourself for actually being cold, or and I mean feeling cold. And you feel cold because your body is not generating all the heat that it uses to break down the meat and the sugar. So your body temperature actually adjusts to that. And so when you feel normally cold, but all you just do is put on a sweater, do something when you're fasting. Take care that if you're in a cold situation, that you do more to protect your body from the cold, because your body is not having to work as hard to break down the meat. Because another thing about when you fast is you have to let your body get used to not working so hard. A lot of times you're saying, oh, my stomach is growling. your stomach is growling because your stomach sometimes is growling when you're fast because it's used to working more, so it's in a habit of creating a whole bunch of these digestive juices and things because every day you're piling up with this food, and so the body gets so, oh, you know something, we have to make so much acid and alkalines every day to be able to break these foods down, so it makes it already. So when you start fasting, the body says, "Oh, but you didn't give us a signal not to make this stuff. So we made a whole bunch of more stuff for you to have to work with. So now that you're not going to use it, we're going to have to find another way to get rid of it. So your stomach might start growling because it has all these enzymes in it to try to break food down, but you haven't given it that food. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have the nutrients you need in your body. A lot of times that growling just means that your body has to now readjust. Because when you start fasting, sometimes have you ever started a fast and then you get to the point where you start finding yourself you're eating less, but you end up with more strength, more stamina, more you're able to stay awake more because your body now, instead of directing all this energy to breaking down these foods and doing things, your body actually said, "Whoa, I got leftover energy. Uh, I got more strength because I am not taking a lot of the strength from the food and the substance you're giving me now to use them just to break down food." So you actually have more strength and can be awake more by giving your body a rest from some of the foods that it has to do it. So, but remember, this is all about that cleansing process, but being moderate in this cleansing process. And it does say schedule a series of fast in this process. So a part of that schedule should be fasting. And remember, with the fasting, there are different ways that you can do the fast. Like this lady said, she went on this long fast of a 7-day fast. That's not necessarily to do with that 7-day fast. And during Lent, we do a fast where we moderate the types of food, where we take some type of food out. But you can even go on a juice fast on a certain day of the week. You say on a certain day of the week, I'm going to fast and pick the time period because sometimes, like I said, you have to get yourself into this new habit. You got to get your body into this new way of processing things. And part of that is you're saying you can build it up. You don't have to start off and saying, "Oh, I'm going to start off with a 7-day fast." No, you can help to train your body. You can say that I'm going to fast. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, just like when you go to sleep at night, that's a fast. That's why we call it breakfast, because you're breaking the fast of the night. And you can decide that I want to fast from sundown to sundown, which means I'm at sundown on one day, or let's say 6 or 7 o'clock on one day, I'm only going to take in liquids, and I'm going to stay on those liquids until sundown the next day. And it doesn't even have to be sundown. You can say, I'm going to do it from midnight to sundown. That from, or whatever time you go to sleep, from the time that I go to sleep, it'd be maybe 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or midnight. Midnight is a good range to say that from midnight to sundown the next day, I am going to only take in liquids, and then decide what liquids you want to take in. I know when I fast, one of the liquids that I like to use is um, coconut water. And I like coconut water because coconut water um, has the electrolytes that your not body needs to keep your body balanced. Uh, the electrolytes are an important part of your body staying in balance, so you don't end up dehydrating yourself. Uh, it's not just sometimes it's not just water, but dehydration actually is the salt, mineral salts that you have, and the water that you have in your body. Because if you just have, just like you're saying, that balance, if you just have the water, you can end up have not having the right electrolytes in your body. Because remember, sometimes when a person is dehydrated, they'll take salt tablets, and the salt tablets is saying you not only got to get the water in you, but you got to have the water that's in the right combination. Remember, we were talking about that cake. Well, the water that your body uses is a certain type of a cake. Also, it has a certain set of minerals in it that is both the H2O and the electrolytes. So if you take something that has those electrolytes in it, then your body has the right combinations of things that it needs to be able to go through that uh, or deal with that. But you can decide whatever juice that you want to use, or if you want to use some other juices with that time that you're a fast, because we're not saying go on a fast and don't do anything. Don't do, or you want to do a water fast and only drink water for that certain period of time. You don't have to be that harsh on your body because remember, it's saying that you do it in moderation. Take a fast, a moderate fast that gives yourself something that you can still feel that you're sustaining yourself, but that you're actually giving your body time to cleanse and like I said, cleanse the bowels, the kidneys, and the liver. So it's schedule time to fast. But it also here says something else. Schedule a study time to learn what herbs and foods are best to promote your health and healing. Now, some of those things we talked about a little bit here. We've talked about some of the things they had in like Diet for a Small Planet. We've talked about, didn't talk about it, but we just use a book called Back to Eden or some other thing that's going to tell you about how to promote your health and healing. Sometimes you can just go on there are many now. There's a lot of web pages that tells you about your health and healing. Look at things like at some of the shows or documentaries they have about health and healing, but take some time to actually make that a part of your daily life. It says seek sound advice and use good judgment. So it's saying with this, when you're studying about your life, with you're trying to study about your health, seek good advice. Don't try to find something, a fad, or just saying, because remember, and none of this is in here. It doesn't say, oh, I want try to lose weight. It is trying to saying, how do you cleanse the body? And how do you cleanse the bowels? How do you cleanse the kidneys? And how do you cleanse the liver? That's the kind of things you want to study. You want to say, oh, no, what I need is just something to lose weight. Because if you lose weight and you don't do even that in a balanced way, you can do more harm to the body than you can do good. So this is talking about how do I get my body in balance? How do I get it in harmony? How do I make my body more divine by giving it what it needs? Because remember, when you're taking a medicine, you're trying to give your body what it needs to confront some ailment that you have. So, and an ailment is the imbalance. So you're trying to give it something to address an imbalance. And when we study health in the body, and I think we should even try to put this in and how do you do your mind, how to do your emotions, all of this, you're trying to find that balance, that peace of God within in all the things we're doing. And from this message is saying, for the body, start learning a little bit more about how it works and how it reacts to certain foods, how it reacts to certain chemicals, how it reacts to even some of the metaphysical elements, how it reacts to the time of the year. We often do things that look at the difference between the spring, the summer, the fall, and the winter. And all those times your body is going through different adaptations. And just like you're saying, working with those elements, which element goes with which one of those. So you'll be paying more attention to the things that we learn. And when I'm talking elements now, I'm talking about the metaphysical elements. Which one goes with which sign, and how you can use that knowledge, just like the ancients used that to be able to find out what plants can help them. How can you use those elements in your life, or even looking at the element of the particular sign of the zodiac in at that time to help you to be able to choose, make better choices on how you find balance in your life. So like I said, it says seek sound advice and use good judgment. It goes on to say, read the first Psalm and burn green candles this month. So it's saying that those are two things we can think about. That first Psalm, which we're saying at the beginning of our service, that's what we use the first Psalm, and burn green candles this month. Now, pause again. Are any questions or comments? And remember, if you want to make a comment, you need to use if you're on a phone, you use the star and the number six, star six. And if you're on a phone, I mean, if you're on a computer, or if you're using your cell phone as a computer where it can has video on and video and audio, you still may have to get it to have the bubble to pop up. Because when you put your cursor in a certain place, it will pull up uh, some controls like to mute and unmute, to turn the video off and turn the video on, to be able to do it. So that can help you to be able to say something. So if you'd like to say something, please use your unmute process. So when I'm muting everything, I just hope that you have found this lesson interesting and insightful, but also that you find it that will help you to see some things you can do to help find more balance, more peace in your life. Because if we can get more peace in our lives, we'll find out that we can solve problems better. In our system, we believe that peace, that calmness, that shalom or hotep, or whichever you want to call it, that is going to be the best I don't want to say best constitution that you're going to have for yourself to be able to solve your problems in life. When you're trying to solve your problems in restlessness and fear and anger, you actually reduce your ability to work with your problems. When you have the peace that we're talking about is not when you just saying, "Oh, I'm not going to attack anybody." No, life is a series of achievements. It's a series of struggles that you go through, but we want to learn how to address those struggles with peace and love, so we can correct things in our life.
Okay.
Okay, you're on.
Hello.
You want to say
Yes,
something, Teresa?
I just wanted to say that people should, if you don't, um, if you're thinking now that you shouldn't get that vaccine, you really should think about getting it,
Oh yeah, I didn't mention the
getting the
vaccine.
shot,
Yeah.
because that's not a good disease to get, and they keep saying that it's mutating, and they don't know how long that it's gonna be here,
Hmm.
and it's gonna keep mutating until it gets something. Um, I mean, it's mutating that it's getting something that's really highly contagious now. And this is not the disease to get. So if you are thinking about not getting the vaccine, you should really be thinking about getting it.
Yeah, yeah, because uh, to me, the when we think about when of God sending answers, I think God has sent an answer. To me, that the vaccine is an answer that God has given us. That how we as a group, because for this vaccine to really be effective, so that we can actually get rid of this disease, like they got rid of things like smallpox and others, that you need a mass of people, a critical mass of people to actually be a part of it. And if you can get that critical mass of people to be a part of it, then you can get that. You can actually wipe out that uh, uh, pandemic, because this is a pandemic. So that means that pan just means it goes all. It's like all over when it's a pandemic. And for that pandemic, you need something that everybody kind of uses to be able to ward it off. And the vaccines are that thing that would help us to ward it off as a group. To me, if the vaccine helps me and helps me to be able to not make my body an incubator for another strand of the disease. Yes, you can say that you can do that. You just want to pray to God give you the health and strength and knowledge to be able to fight off the disease when you come up to it. Because with something at this magnitude, you probably are going to at some point come in contact with it. But you want to come in contact with it where your body already has been given the necessary instructions it needs to be able to deal with it. And that's what I see the vaccine is some of the necessary instructions your body has on how to deal with it. And if enough people have those necessary instructions in that, then it will just knock the disease away rather than people now, because when they talk about a strand of the disease, what it means is someone has gotten the disease has had a battle in that person's body, and the disease has found out what it needs to do to change to be able to be better at destroying that person's body. So then they give it to the next person as a variant of the original disease. By working together, we can knock out the disease so it doesn't keep doing variants where it keeps coming back and back and back. The few viruses like that, it is so many variations of it around that every year you got to take something to kind of deal with. We don't want this to be that type of disease. We want this to be the type of disease where enough people have dealt with it and use this process they have, which actually is the vaccines now are looking at on a DNA level, giving your body the instructions it needs to be able to heal. But remember, it's still just instructions. Like I said before, that divine spark within you still needs to be the one that deals with it. And that's why because we did take that first, Teresa and I did take that first vaccine, but we prayed on it before we went there because we want our bodies to know that we thank God for giving us the opportunity to be able to ward off this disease. Because I still know it is the divine spark of God within you that is going to be what deals with it. But just like we're saying with food, sometimes that divine spark can work better when it has the right set of instructions and the right set of ingredients to deal with it. I even say when you even if you take the vaccine, still take the things you know that help to build your body up against immune diseases. Like still take, don't say, oh, I'm gonna take the vaccine, and so I'm not gonna take the lecithin and the zinc anymore. No, give your body all the ingredients and all the instructions it needs so that you can be a healthy part of getting rid of this disease. So that vaccine can be a healthy way to get your body to know what it needs to do when it is confronted with this particular disease. So for those who it's available to take to you, I would suggest that you take it. And I'm suggesting it because I think as a group, you help the group out, not just yourself, not just saying, oh, I'm going to just get what I need to get it off myself, and then take the chance of your body being an incubator for, not to saying that you won't be healed from taking those things, but is your body going to be an incubator for a variant of the disease while you are healing it? Because I don't want to pass this down to another generation. I don't want to say, oh, I was healed, but I was healed and now I have this variant of this disease that I think can pass on to other generations, and we want all of them to use their God-given powers to deal with it. The vaccine is a way, and vaccines were something that also were created in as a way in Africa. Uh, uh, I think the guy who created vaccines, they don't a lot of times give him credit, but he got that from some of his the Africans that were, and I don't remember if it was a slave or just an African man that told him about how they dealt with things like fever, how they would use a someone who had already had the fever and use some of that from them to be able to help to protect the other members of the tribe. So, and this goes from in Africa and in Egypt. That's why I was saying they had used some of the things that were more of a homeopathic. To me, vaccines, even the other vaccines, because this vaccine is actually on the DNA level, but when you take a vaccine, what you're actually doing is more of a homeopathic type of healing, where you're taking something that seemingly would cause the disease or cause the symptoms to rid it, but that's what gives your body instructions it needs to deal with it. Now with vaccines, normal vaccines usually use a dead variant of that disease in a low dosage. Because remember, we say with homeopathic, you usually use with a low dosage. So that gives your body the instructions it needs to be able to deal with it in that homeopathic process. And the way they have designed this new vaccine, where it's working on almost a DNA level, is to me sort of that same type of homeopathic process where you give your body the instructions that it needs to be able to deal with the disease. It's just giving it to the instructions on a DNA level. But once your body has those instructions, the miraculous, marvelous machine that God has given us in these human bodies can be able to deal with it and deal with it in such a way that it does not create a variant of that disease that you and others would have to deal with. Any other comments or questions?
Oh, I had one other comment.
Uh-huh.
They have a new advisory about masks. They're saying that if you planning on wearing a cloth mask, that you hold that mask up to a light, and if the light comes through it, then that means you need to put another mask with it. And they recommend that really, if you're going to use a cloth mask with this new strain that they have out now, that you really need to consider putting another mask with it.
Yeah.
I'm talking about them
Double
paper
mask.
masks, the paper, the ones that's got the three, it's like three panel, the blue uh, mask. They suggest that you put that with the cloth mask if you're planning on wearing a cloth mask.
Yes. Because the cloth mask don't open. The light coming through means that the particles of the virus can also come through. So saying double mask, make sure that what you're wearing is thick enough to keep it off. And even if you're getting for now, even if you're getting the vaccine, that still means you need the social distance. That still means because remember, even the vaccine, it's like a 90 something percent for one. I think it's I've forgotten the percentages, but you still have, and especially until we're getting in enough people, you still maybe that one out of nine that could still get the disease. And yes, having the vaccine might help you to deal with it better. You still want to say, as long for until I get this critical mass of people that has a vaccine, I want to not be an incubator for a variant of the disease. So thank you, Teresa, for reminding us about the vaccine. I think it was someone else wanted to speak also.
Yeah, I wanted to also say when you mentioned about we have to pray first,
Mm-hmm.
you pray first and you meditate for yourself to see what you should do for you. Because with this vaccine also, you should check with your doctor because some people have allergies and they have things with the ingredients that's in the vaccine,
Mm-hmm.
it will be prone for them to check because it could be more of a hazard to them, the ones with the allergies and different things. So they
Yes.
must check with the doctor first because some of the ingredients in that and the allergies that they have, they have to be careful of their health.
Yes. Yes.
But as far as getting the vaccine, yes. I've gotten the vaccine, and I'm gonna, get the second vaccine when I'm supposed to, because I did check with my doctor because I know the medicine that I take with the asthma medicine. He said some of the medicines that
Some ingredients.
you take for that with the ingredients, you have to be careful. So I wasn't gonna say I wasn't gonna get it because when it came out, I was prone to getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would rather get that and to be healthier than to die from this disease. And they have one called Vagrant UK. It's another one that came from Africa and the UK that's joining in with this disease with the COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
So they said that's even stronger than the COVID. And with that, they said with the COVID vaccine that we're getting, it is helping to fight off. That would also help with that one. But
Yes.
so many things are coming up. Yeah, we're concerned about the vaccines. Like I told some people, we have to realize when we got the polio shot and we got all those other vaccines for measles, it's the same thing. They've created people and to invent these things to help us. And they're helping us to get rid of these diseases. So we have to go ahead and, trust in God. You pray and you trust in God to get the help that you need and keep it moving.
Yes.
Because if you have the faith and feel that you're going to be healed from something, you will be.
And I believe when you pray that that vaccine does in your body what you wanted to do. To me, you just don't say, you say, pray, I'm taking this vaccine to fight against COVID and all COVID-19 and all its variants.
Right.
And I want my body to be a part of ridding this planet of this pandemic. I mean, that should be, to me, that should be a part of your prayer. Don't just say, oh, pray, oh Lord, no, just say, tell your body to accept it and to work with it and be a part of it, spreading that healing throughout. So, because when you pray for working with that vaccine, you can pray to send that thought out throughout the whole world. That's a wonderful thing about prayer. You don't have to make prayer and just limit it for yourself. You can pray for it and say that you want this to be a part of ridding the world of COVID-19 and all its variants.
That's right.
So thank you for reminding me. But check with your doctors and make sure, because remember I said you need some people that can't take it. It's just you got to have a critical mass. So if you can be a part of that critical mass, and I think it's like 75% of the people need to be a part of it. But when you look at the Black communities and you find out how hard we have been hit by this, we should be one of the communities in saying, we want to make sure, and some of the Black communities, like in Miami, it wasn't happening. They were bringing the vaccine in, and it was like 50% of the people, and what's the name of that rich area of Miami? One of those islands. 50% of the people on
Island.
What was that island again?
Star Island.
Star Island. They got to 50% of the white people in no time, and only 2% of the Black community. Now, much more of the people were getting sick in the Black community, but the people in this rich community, most of the vaccinations went to them. When the need is actually in the Black community. And yes, and to me, when we were talking about some of those other things where they did Black people wrong with medicines, most of the time that was not involving them in getting the medicine.
Right.
It was not getting them, like when you talk about that Tuskegee experiment, the horror of that Tuskegee experiment is that they were studying the black men, but were not treating the disease.
Mm-hmm.
So they were studying the effects of syphilis on their body, and even had things that if the people went to another doctor, they had ways of contacting them and told them, do not treat this person for syphilis. Because the crazy thing about it is they knew that there was a cure for syphilis. So what they did in the Tuskegee experiment is they refused to give them the cure for it, for the silly reason of trying to prove that black people were different than white people. It was really a horrible thing they did. But what they were doing is they were trying to prove, and they've done this with several things, of trying to prove that there's a difference between black people and white people. And what they did in the Tuskegee experiment is that even though there had been some German scientists, and I think it was German, who had done this extensive studies on syphilis and had written these reports about all the stages of syphilis, everything that happened to you during syphilis. And so they had all these reports on telling them how syphilis, and then what was the cure for syphilis. And because they were trying to prove that black people were different from white people, they used these men in Tuskegee to study the effects of syphilis on their body. But to do that, that means you don't cure it. You let them go through every stage of syphilis. And it was to let them go through every stage of syphilis to be able to show that the way that black people went through syphilis was different from the way that white people, this German study, they were trying to show that it was going to be a difference. And they went through that whole study and showed that black people reaction to syphilis was the same result that they got from white people who were acted to syphilis. So that's the horror of the Tuskegee experiment, is that they did not give the black people the cure, even though the cure was already known. So for me, for black people to say now, if their reason for it's not for getting it is because you want to not be a part of be treated like the people in the Tuskegee incident, that means that you get the cure. It doesn't mean that you don't get the cure. It means that don't be like those guys in the Tuskegee Institute incident where they did not give them the cure. Be like those who actually get the cure, get what they already know is helping to do it. So it's, like I said, it's not getting it is a part of making sure you're a part of it. And I think in polio, he did some of the same type of experiments to show the effects of that salt vaccine. They actually use some black people as they call them the control experiment. And the control experiment means you're ones who are not getting the cure. So you don't want to be a part of control experiment. You want to, and that's why a lot of people didn't want to be a part of the trials, because during the trials, there are always those who are part of the control experiment. But the part of the control means those people aren't getting anything, so you can use them as a baseline to prove how effective your medicine is. But after they start giving out the vaccine, you're past that point. And to me, as Black people, we should want to be a part of the solution and not be left out of the cure.
Mm-hmm.
But anyone else? But with health, we need to think, and that's why it says you need to study about health, because you need to study about how like I said, your body is this, that God has given us are these miraculous machines, but like they say, but they work in these different balances that you have to do, and you need to learn about what those balances are and learn how to interact with them. Just because, remember, just like you say, oh, I can cook. Well, your body is cooking up stuff for you all the time. It's taking the stuff that you cook. Because remember, like I said, cooking is one of the chemical processes. cooking was made so you can try to break down, especially when you're talking about cooking meat. Cooking meat was made so you begin to break down some of the cell walls of the meat to make it your body make it possible for your body to get more at it. Even with plants, when you plants that you cook, you're trying to break down some of the cellular walls of the plants so your body can get more access to the ingredients in it. And there's some fruit that is better to eat it while it's raw. But you need to fruits and vegetables that you can eat it while it's raw, and you're going to get more out of it. Because when you're cooking it, you're actually cooking away some of the vitamins. So you have to study how your body works and what is the best way of making it so that you give your body the right balance that it needs. Anyone else? And just so for February, we know that February is coming tomorrow. Tomorrow is the first day of Black History Month. So, like I said, if you get a chance to see that that video by Percy Julian, make that a part of your Black history, because you see a Black man and you see the problems he faced. And he was a genius in chemistry, a real genius in chemistry that just kept getting pushed away from things, and it looked like every time he was pushed away from something, he would find some way to still excel in his chemical pursuits. When they would not want him to go to college, and he would end up somewhere that he could learn more about it. When they made him go all the way to Germany to be able to get his degree and be able to actually make a name for himself, so when he came back, he had a good name, had a name for himself. But he had, because of his race, he had a very hard, many obstacles that he faced in life, but he always kept trying to show that genius that he had in working with chemical things. But it's, like I said, it's Black History Month. The national theme has to do with family. That's another thing you should look at, is how your family structure helps to build you up and sometimes tear you down. You have to look at your family structure and find out, what about my family? Because your family is the ones that you have in your group. Who is in your group to help you? Who is your, not just your blood family, but who is your spiritual family? Who is your mental family? Who's your emotional family? Who's there to help you to stay on that right path? And for Black people, they need to think, because I think we take family or relationships as a very integral part on who we see ourselves, how we see ourselves and who we see ourselves to be. So we should look at those relationships and see in a historical thing, patterns, how we've used our relationships with each other. Because, because when I was thinking about family, a lot of times when Black people, I know when you're in school and you have this friend who's a very good friend of you, next thing you know, you're telling everybody that's your cousin. Or if your aunt is dating some man and they're not even married, you end up having to call them uncle. So family has been, and we have this extended family where it's not just the parents, but you're talking about the grandparents and all the uncles and aunts. We look at this relationship we have to people. We call each other brother and sister to make what? To try to make ourselves more of a family. So this Black History Month, look at family. Also remember, in February we have Valentine's Day, and I know we have a couple of birthdays, but February should be a beautiful month. Did someone else have something? I think someone else had the comment. No one else had any comments? Oh, and I forgot with February, when we talked about birthdays, in February, on February the 7th is Supreme Father Marshall Davis Sr.'s birthday. Is February the 7th. Also, his son Myron. So we have those birthdays coming up in February. February the 7th. I hear my wife out there without a mic.
What about Zandra?
Zandra's on the 15th. My sister Joyce is on the 24th.
24th.
Yeah, which is a part of Pisces. Any other?
Right.
Any other? I mentioned Marshall, Myron,
Andra.
Sandra,
We
Joyce. Oh, and I forgot someone else had a birthday this week. We need to do at least one verse of happy birthday to her.
One dude.
Teresa had a birthday.
Right.
Oh, so let's at least say happy birthday
Birthday.
to you.
Happy birthday.
Yeah,
Thank
because it's hard to
Happy
actually say when
birthday
it's
to you.
happy
I got you.
birthday.
I got your package over here.
Oh, and I got a package for you.
I know, but I got your birthday gift.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Have many more.
Thank you.
Okay, so if nothing else, I'd like to kind of end up by making our message from the Supreme Mother Miller, where it says, "I shall thank and praise God for His understanding." And also remember, as we said, that all my health comes from the Lord. So in all these things that we've talked about, whether it was food, whether it was medicine, whether it's teas, when you take it, to me, or even when you get the shot, know that that shot is a part of something that there are things that God has created. Man has not created material things. God has created that. So always try to connect them back to the original source, which is God. So think that all my health comes from the Lord. And if there's nothing else, I thank you for being with us. Our website is there. I'm up to date. I know Hope told me that she had to miss a couple of and didn't have them, so I had to make sure I got all of our recorded messages up. So they're up now, and you can see them on our website, www.spiritualguidancetemple.org. And yeah, I think that's all I'll say. And if you need to contact me, my number is 954-549-4713. But thank you very much for being a part with us today. This is the last pause. If anything else I've forgotten, and if not, may the love of God illuminate your way. May the will of God direct you each day. May the truth of God all errors depart, and may the peace of God forever dwell in your heart. Amen. Amen. Amen.